Hey guys, Stealth here. It's been quite a while since I uploaded a video, but I've been extremely busy lately. Not only playing World of Warships, don't worry, I've also been doing some actually productive stuff, like building my offline business. But I thought I might record some more videos because it's been so long and I've been playing a lot of very nice games in World of Warships. Now, in case you haven't been following the development of this game, the game is now in open beta. That means that you no longer have to buy your way in. You can just download the game from worldofwarships.eu or .com, whatever server you want to join. Right now I'm following my Minekaze. This is a Japanese tier 5 class destroyer. Gun-wise, it's a pretty poor ship. It has 4 turrets, as you can see here. A couple on the bow, 2 amidships and 1 on the stern of the ship. But the real power of this ship lies in the torpedo tubes. And those torpedo tubes, you can see them again amidships. Two dual launcher amidships and 1 on the bow. And that is really the main strength of this ship. Another strength of this ship is that it's a silent assassin, which is something that I really like. I used to play a lot of light tanks in World of Tanks. Whenever I play role-playing games, I usually go assassin or sneaky characters. So, if I can get a sneaky ship which delivers a ton of damage, and I'm talking 10 to 13,000 with a single torpedo, then yes please. So in this game, this is the fault line map. I'm scouting the middle, and it's a domination, so we need to capture as many zones as we can. So I'm looking around here, trying to go towards the middle, because my ship can only be detected at 6 kilometers away. But looking at what other ships there are, there's a Gremyashi and a Clemson. Now Gremyashi, I can detect him before he can detect me. But I did ask my carrier to send forward his fighter, and you can see it up there. And immediately he spots that Gremyashi. It's at 6.1 kilometers, it hasn't spotted me yet. And unfortunately destroyers are very agile. So it's not very likely for my torpedoes to hit. But I want to send them something to think about. So, sending at least a couple of shells over and having the torpedoes in the water is going to buy me some time to either get out or wait for backup. So right now I'm slowly retreating here. He immediately popped his smoke, but he doesn't really need smoke right now. And somehow he did not see a torpedo coming. So that is why I get 1 torpedo hit, and that almost killed him. I think he has about 10-15% of his hit points left. Meanwhile, my torpedoes have been reloaded. They have a reload of 40 seconds. And you can even push that down with some of the perks on the commanders, and later on with some of the modules that you can install. They're like the equipment from World of Tanks. Now, my next target here is a Kuma class cruiser. And you can see by the torpedo lead indicator, that's the white bar, that this ship is turning quite heavily. And as I zoom in, you can see this in practice. This guy is really turning back and forth, and that makes it a lot harder for me to hit him and predict where he's going to be. So I at least send out a few torpedoes, trying to give him something to think about as I try and close the distance. And not only giving this guy some worries, but also trying to flush him from this side of the map towards that side, where more of my allied cruisers are operating. These cruisers already took down 2 ships here. I think one of them is ours. That must be the ship that's pointing that way. And this Kuma cruiser is probably not going to get hit by those torpedoes. They just weren't armed properly, or aimed properly for him to hit that ship. I do manage to get a couple of gunshots, or gun hits. And whenever it's safe for me, I try to go in with guns first to try and set a ship on fire. Usually players will respond by putting out the fire, and then my torpedo hits. And torpedo hits, of course, cause flooding. And flooding does a lot of damage over long term, and where a player has already repaired the damage, so used his repair party to put out the fire, he can no longer use that same repair party to go after the flooding. So he's going to be flooding for 30 to 40 seconds. Now I have been detected. My range is 5.6 kilometers out of the 5.9. 5.9 is where I'm hidden for this guy. There are no other ships nearby, so I'm just peppering him with some fire, but even though he's a tier lower than I am, I'm not doing a lot of damage. And someone else took him out. So, I now know that there are no more ships down here. That destroyer, that Gremyashi, is not dead yet. He's still hiding out there. You can see him on the mini-map here. There's one battleship and one cruiser to the south, so I'm going to try and have these cruisers put some pressure onto these guys, whereas I sneak by this side and try to jam some torpedoes into the bow of that ship. So I'm going to speed this area up a little bit. I know I should turn my AA off, but there was no one who could really present a threat to me right now, so I might as well try to go after that single scout plane, that single cruiser-launched fighter. There's the Grim, 9.4 clicks. He hasn't seen me. He cannot detect me at that range, but I cannot shoot him either, because my guns only have a range of 7.6, which is really, really low for a destroyer. But it's just the way it is. My torpedoes have a range of 10, and that's my main weapon anyway. Now over here I'm getting detected, and I'm getting detected by that stupid fighter squadron, or that single fighter overhead. He's causing quite a problem, because now these guys on this side will know that I'm coming. So I'm gonna try and get the jump on these guys, trying to get a few torpedoes in the water on this battleship. And this cruiser is too far away, and there he goes. He already got taken out by the other two cruisers out there. So this battleship is pretty much doomed. He has nowhere to run. The only way he can run is south. If he turns west, he's going to be cruising straight towards me, and I have my torpedoes already in the water and a second salvo ready to launch in 15. Not only that, but he also has at least one cruiser, and the other one is also in range. That's the 11.3 kilometer range one. He has those peppering him with HE damage. So you can see that this guy, my Yogi class battleship, tier 4, is really in quite a lot of trouble. Always send out your torpedoes first. They have a better range, and with that range you can also buy yourself some time. By this I mean that my torpedoes take time. They take time to get towards the target. I think they travel at 59 knots, which is pretty fast for torpedoes. I'm using the 10 kilometer ones. The 7 kilometer range ones are faster. But I want to send out my torpedoes first and then start peppering this guy with gunfire. Now unfortunately he's slowed down quite a bit, and that means that my torpedoes are going to overshoot the target. You can see them completely veering off course there. But someone else does have more torpedoes in the water, and that is this Phoenix class cruiser. I think that the Phoenix might be out of range, so his torpedoes are probably not even going to reach that battleship. But the battleship is pretty much stopped right now. He's not going anywhere. He got hit once by a torpedo, 1500 damage, he's on fire, he's flooding, and he's gone. Now these torpedoes, you might say it was a bit careless for me to launch them right now, but not really, because I knew that that Phoenix was never going to get into position next to that battleship where he might be able to get hit by my torpedoes. Whenever you're playing this game and you have a ship that's armed with torpedoes, always be careful. You don't want your torpedoes to start hitting friendlies, because not only is it going to be bad for your score, it's also going to be bad for people reporting you. They can do that now. There's a report system in the game. As well as it's just bad practice to torpedo your teammates. Now I'm spotting a carrier here 10 kilometers away. Unfortunately he's moving away from me, so I'm going to hold off on launching torpedoes for a bit. And while I can fire, or at least not yet of course, I need to close to within 7.6 kilometers. I need to get a little bit closer, and I don't want to give away my position just yet. But once those cruisers start lighting him up, he has enough to worry about. He has to start spreading his planes about, and he cannot really go solely for me. So trying to put him on fire, trying to get some hits in, and you can see that this guy's health bar, or hit points, is dropping pretty damn quickly. This Langley is not fast. He's traveling at, I believe, top speed of 16 knots. That's nothing compared to my 42 knots, which is including the engine boost, or the speed boost that you can now get as a consumable. So I'm pretty much 3 times faster than this ship, and that means that this guy is screwed. He has nowhere to run, and he's going to get hit a lot by the cruisers. It's not a mobile ship, and these guys, the Kumas, just have a field day. With their high rate of fire, they can just constantly pepper this guy. Now at this range, I can more or less reliably launch torpedoes. The one thing that I do have to consider is that these torpedoes, if I aim them that way, they might force the ship to turn that way. If the ship turns port, then it's not that likely for my torpedoes to hit. So I'm trying to get a pretty much flat-on engagement with this ship, which I now have. It's pretty much a 15-degree deviation, but that's well enough. And I know 6 torpedoes is overkill, but there are no other targets in the region, or I would have spotted them by now. And now there's only 3 ships left. 2 cruisers, 1 battleship, and I know that there's a battleship and a cruiser out there. And there goes the carrier. Now unfortunately the rest of the replay I couldn't really do a lot. I'm going to speed it up a little because the only thing that I could have been hunting here was another cruiser. But it turned out that that cruiser was also in this direction. You can see there's the second cruiser and the battleship just got sunk. Now, this guy Zulu Elite UK launched torpedoes at that carrier, but I was pretty much between him and the carrier, and that means that I almost got hit by his torpedoes. So whenever you see someone doing this, please alert them to the fact that you can get hit by their torpedoes. Jingles also pointed out there are no such things as friendly torpedoes. A torpedo will hit anything, friend or foe, and it's going to do maximum damage pretty much wherever it hits, unless you're a battleship and you have some belt armor against torpedoes. Anyway, with this replay I wanted to show you how stealthy this ship can be, as well as the speed of the thing. I'm traveling at 42 knots if I'm using the speed boost. So with this you can really get around the map quickly. You don't need to use it merely to get yourself out of trouble. You can also use it to get yourself into more favorable locations, or to get close to an enemy ship faster than you normally would with your 39 knots. Now of course for battleships 39 knots is pretty much inconceivable, but that's why I like to play these little fast ships. So, on to another replay. Okay, next replay, this time hotspot map. It's 5 domination zones, 2 which are very easy to capture by both teams, which is for my team D and B, for the enemy team A and E if you look on the minimap. C zone is usually quite difficult to capture. Pretty much the only ships that can reliably capture that zone are destroyers like my Minekaze, but this game I'm going to do something completely different, and I really had a lot of fun doing this. What I'm going to do is try to lure away some ships that are going to pose a threat to my team later. First, of course, I want to capture the D zone, because with this, the more zones we have, the more points we're getting. Then I want to swing my ship out towards around this island and try and get some shots on cruisers and battleships which might come out from the E zone towards the north. I want to intercept them with my torpedoes and hopefully do some damage that way. I'm also trying to go carrier hunting, so in chat I posted, please ping the CV location if you can spot the planes. Now, it turned out that the entire game I was chasing a carrier which was not actually in the location that I thought it would be. So that was a bit of a waste of my time, but in the end, I managed to, without doing a lot of damage, be a real asset to my team, and you're going to see why in a couple minutes. First off, I'm trying to get a good lock on this Cleveland. You can see the torpedo lead indicator is turning quite a bit, so the ship is maneuvering. You can see that this is that Cleveland here on the mini-map. He is currently holding a pretty steady course, and he might go north. Now, I don't really have too much of a backup. I only got 1 cruiser, and the other cruisers are heading east. So I'm gonna try and get a torpedo run on this guy. And then I want to flank around and try to get shots on these battleships. But that means I have to abandon the safety of my little island here. So torpedoes away, and instantly the torpedo lead indicator starts turning. That means that I am never going to hit this ship, because it's turning south and is completing a hard turn to port, which means it's not going to be a good hit for me. These torpedoes are just going to keep going. Pretty much they're launching this way. They might hit a battleship, but at this point I really don't think so. What I'm also doing is spotting for my team. I do have the support of a torpedo bomber squadron, a dive bomber and a fighter squadron here, which are lighting up these units. But I also want to try and get some more attention from these guys, in the sense that I want to keep them busy evading torpedoes. So again, I launched 3 torpedoes at the Cleveland at 9.6 kilometers, which means that they are in range, so long as the ship doesn't move too much. And there's a big clump of ships here. If I might not hit that Cleveland, I might hit something else. Now I'm trying to steer away from this New York, trying to go towards the map edge, because this New York is engaging the cruiser behind me. He's going for the Cleveland. If he'd been paying attention, he would know that there is a destroyer in the region, because these ships keep getting torpedoed by me. But for some reason the guy just doesn't pay attention. You can see that he just keeps sailing in a straight line, which is perfectly fine for me. I just keep launching torpedoes at him. And torpedo launches are stealthy. They cannot be detected by any kind of platform unless you're looking right at the ship. And even then, you're not likely to see the ship just yet. So with that, I'm keeping these ships busy, and that's going to be pretty much the main thing that I do here. I'm going to keep them engaged and keep them away from this cruiser up here. And there you go, 1 hit on the battleship, and he's flooding. Although the flooding is not going to take long, of course. He is losing quite a bit of hit points here, and already my torpedoes have been reloaded, so I want to do it again. I'm going to keep launching torpedoes at this guy. Now this battleship at this stage knows that I'm here. It just doesn't know exactly where I am. And that for me is going to be very, very beneficial. You can see that he is trying to turn his guns towards the north. He's also turning the ship away. And there is another ship here, which is a Wyoming. Now the New York is really the prize here, because that's a tier 5. A Wyoming is a decent target, but it's a tier 4. I want to try and get the highest value targets out of the game, pretty much like we did in Wargame, where you first try to kill the Leopard 2A5 and not the Leopard 1A5. You want to get that high value kill. So, torpedoes are in the water. Here we go, another salvo is being launched. And this somewhat reminds me of the Atlanta class cruiser, where you have shots in the air, and then before the shots have landed you can launch another salvo. Now that's something that you can only do with the Minekaze if you're using the 10 kilometer range torpedoes, because the 7 kilometer range are just going to hit too soon. But I prefer the 10 because it gives me a little bit more flexibility. They are a little bit less likely to hit because they're slower, but otherwise they do just as much damage or maybe more. I'd have to check on that. And by staying in this range of these ships, I'm just keeping them busy. And you can see that this battleship here has its turrets turned towards me. He is trying to find a target, but he has no idea where I am. Another 2 torpedo hits on that Wyoming. He's just blind firing at this stage. He blind fired, I think, somewhere towards the back of the map, thinking that I might be there. So what I'm doing here is keeping 2 battleships, which are in 1 platoon. It's Trifnix and Doc Clown. I'm keeping this platoon busy, so I'm keeping 2 battleships out of the fight and doing some damage to them. It's not a ton of damage, but they have been pretty heavily wounded, and they're in a catch-22 situation. They cannot ignore me, because I just keep torpedoing them. If they head another way, I'm going to follow them and keep doing torpedo damage. I'm going to keep launching and keep being annoying little... sorry, I was going to say tank destroyer, but I mean destroyer, which is exactly what I should be doing. So that is another way that you can play the Minekaze, or pretty much any kind of destroyer for that matter. It works better for Japanese than United States Navy destroyers, because the USN destroyers are a little bit less stealthy and they definitely don't have the range. But for now it works perfectly. Now these battleships might be firing at those units far away, but I'm not too sure that they are. And even if they are, it's only the better for me, because with this I can do more torpedo attacks on them. Now unfortunately I get spotted by another fighter that's been launched by a cruiser. And this is spotting me, which means that these battleships suddenly have eyes on me, and I might start to receive fire. So I'm veering left and right, trying to get away from the plane, which is no longer being controlled by anyone. It's just out there waiting for its timer to run out, but it is doing circles. I lost the visual lock, and I'm trying to just get behind these islands. I thought that the enemy carrier might be down here. In the end of the game, it turned out it was all the way up there in A7. So I was chasing pretty much nothing the entire game, but I caused 2 battleships to chase me. So that's another way you can play the Minekaze, or any destroyer. Just tempt these guys into following you. And if they are not as experienced, then they're just going to do that. If these battleships had gone east, that would have been a far better decision for them. Because together they could have pretty much killed this cruiser and possibly that battleship. It's outside of my visual, so I don't really know what kind of ship it is, other than it's a battleship. You can see it by the double line. And with that, they could have had a much bigger impact on the game. But just coming down here, they're done. And we ended up winning this match. Alright, on to the last replay for today. Okay, last replay for the day. This is a very, very favorable match for me. I'm a tier 5 class destroyer with a 10 kilometer range, and I'm fighting off a lot of tier 3 and tier 4 ships. You can see the other tier 5s in this game are the Congo, the Bogue on my team, and there is a Minekaze and an Omaha class cruiser on the enemy team. Now I'm not even going to see the Omaha the entire game, but I will be dealing with quite a few of the other ships here. And having a 10 kilometer range in this small map, because that's really what it is, this is the big race map. And this map is quite small if you're going high tier. And by that I mean that the higher tier ships have more range, a better gun, a little bit more accuracy usually, and in my case better torpedoes. So the range that you can see here on the minimap is the range of my guns. This is 7.6. It's really quite far because it means I can hit pretty much over this island. 10 kilometer range is almost to say half across the cap circle, and that's from my starting position. So that means that I can already engage ships that are almost across the map, or at least across the cap circle from my starting position. This is what I think is a bit of an unfair advantage that torpedoes, or at least torpedo destroyers, have in this specific situation. In this map anyway, torpedoes or destroyers have a very, very good situation because there's so much cover here going on. There's a lot of destroyer fighting that's usually going on with these islands. Battleships and cruisers are usually more along this side, and the middle in this situation is a cap circle, but sometimes it's just contested by cruisers and some battleships. Now, unfortunately I forgot to turn off my AA, and that is going to cause a bit of a problem because I'm giving my position away in a few seconds. The Minekaze doesn't really have a good AA battery. It may look impressive, the fire that's going up, but I'm not actually doing a lot of damage. The only thing I'm doing is making my life a little bit more difficult by giving my position away. But fortunately there are no ships currently who can monetize on it. There are no ships who can take shots at me yet. And by the time that they do, I'm no longer in range. That is, until I try to start engaging these torpedo squadrons, which are going for the 2 battleships there, which are way too close. If you look on the minimap, this is just torpedo bomber heaven. If they aim for this ship, they're even likely to hit that one if they miss with the torpedoes. So this is pretty much a guaranteed hit, possibly even a kill for this combined squadron. And I am getting detected by planes flying overhead, like this fighter squadron. They cannot do anything directly to me, but they are posing a significant problem in the fact that this Kuma cruiser here is engaging me right now. So I launch 6 torpedoes, trying to evade any incoming fire, and I duck behind this island to cover my ship. Now, if you're in a Kuma class cruiser or pretty much any ship whatsoever and you're going towards the middle, make sure you're a difficult target. You can see that in my destroyer I'm constantly veering. I'm changing course pretty much every moment, and that's something that destroyers can do very, very well because they have a very quick rudder. But if you're in a ship that's not as maneuverable, try altering your speed. Try to keep the enemy guessing. If you don't keep the enemy guessing, this happens. That Kuma has a hit point pool of 22,000. Or at least, he did. Ship killed. I killed 22,000 points of hit points by firing a couple of torpedoes into him. He could have easily dodged those if he had changed course or speed after I had launched my torpedoes. Because my torpedoes were launched way in advance and he had plenty of time to evade those. Now unfortunately I cannot really engage this Phoenix class cruiser because if I launch my torps now I'm more likely to hit the St. Louis here than that Phoenix. So I'm going to try and do something else instead. I'm going after this group of battleships and cruisers which is on the other side of me. I have a 10-kilometer range, so these guys are well inside of my range. The only thing is that with their speed I need to be aiming almost in that direction to ensure a hit. So I'm going to launch torpedoes pretty much in a general direction of this fleet, try and get some way to break up these ships. I'm going to break the spread, this big block of power, and force them to turn, because if you force a battleship to turn, it can no longer point all of its guns onto the target. Now unfortunately I got spotted again, because I still haven't turned my AA off, and or actually I turned my AA back on for this. I'm trying to get some good hits on this torpedo squadron to worry them, panic them, and try to possibly shoot one down, if not making them scared and presenting them as a much more easy to dodge group of fighters or bombers for that cruiser which is out there, that's St. Louis. So, another channel that I can fire torpedoes through, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. 6 torpedoes in the water, 40-second recharge, and here we go. There's my initial spread of torpedoes. I don't think that they're going to hit anything, but at least they forced these battleships to respond to me. And it forced them to start changing course south in order to dodge, which means they only had their 2 bow guns to fire at these cruisers instead of all their guns if they were going at it sideways. So 2 more battleships here, and this is what I was really looking for. This is of course the enemy aircraft carrier, or at least one of them. This is the Hosho. And this Hosho is very close to me. I'm trying to close the distance as much as possible while doing as much damage as I can with my guns, because I know that these battleships are not looking at me. I checked that before I opened fire. You can see 2 torpedo hits going into those battleships there, so that was kind of lucky. I had not really expected those torpedoes to hit anything, but these torpedoes are definitely going to hit anything. They're going to hit this 10-TUS user operating in a Hosho class carrier. And we pretty much can predict where the other carrier is, because there's a torpedo squadron that just appeared right from there. And here it is. There's the second Hosho. So my first wave of torpedoes is hitting that ship, doing a ton of damage, and I killed off a second target. Now this second Hosho is responding, and this torpedo squadron almost hit me. Keep in mind that torpedo squadrons, which are air-launched torpedoes, do a little bit less damage, but don't underestimate them. If you're operating a destroyer, they can still hurt you quite a bit. So in this situation, I was doing quite okay. A destroyer is maneuverable enough to easily dodge these things. Now this proved to be quite a difficult target to hit, this Hosho, because he's moving full speed into the side of the map, and that makes ships extremely unpredictable. Of course gunfire is easy, but torpedo hits are a lot more difficult because you have to aim those kilometers in advance, and they travel a lot slower than gunshots. So this is why my torpedoes are never going to hit that ship, or at least not yet. Now I have help here from this Reaper 171, this Phoenix class cruiser. He's providing a good distraction towards this battleship, so that the battleship is not going for me, as well as trying to pepper this cruiser with AP and HE fire. HE fire against carriers is best. You want to put those things on fire. Now the Hosho is still trying to defend itself, launching another spread of torpedoes, but they're never going to hit. I saw them coming, I dodged them, and there we go. Put him on fire, and Reaper launched a couple of torpedoes. That's 2 of his, and he managed to kill off that aircraft carrier. Now he had 8,000 hit points left, and I did launch a couple of torpedoes to assist, so this is officially my kill. But I think that most of the damage was done by Reaper 171. New target is appearing. A Minekaze class tier 4 battleship, Japanese, launching another spread of torpedoes. And I know that a battleship does not like aiming at a destroyer. Destroyers are too fast. And especially some of the older battleships just don't have the gun rotation to keep their guns at my ship. So instead, I'm guessing that he's going to go for this cruiser, putting up a smoke screen to protect us both. You can see that I lost the detection marker. It's going on and off. So one moment I am detected, the other moment I'm not. And I score another torpedo hit. So this Minekaze is being put on fire every now and then. He's being torpedoed, he's flooding. This guy is really in a bad spot. Now unfortunately, Reaper gets between me and the Minekaze, so I cannot launch torpedoes just yet. What I do get is quite a large amount of rewards here. I get Devastating Strike, which is killing someone very quickly, doing 50% or more to the damage. I get Confederate for damaging at least 6 ships and doing 20% off their hit pool in damage. And High Caliber, which is damage at least 4 ships and damage 30% of their hit pool. Anyway, killing off another ship here. It's my 4th kill. I'm going to slow it down a bit here because we're approaching the end of the video. I'm trying to get another couple of torpedoes onto the South Carolina. What the Minekaze does best is the way that I'm playing it. It's a very stealthy ship, or at least that's the way that I'm using it. Of course, there's not really one right way, but this is the way that I found to be most successful for this ship. What I really like about it is the low detectability and the high torpedo range, and it's just a joy to play. Now, of course, I also use camouflage with this ship. You can get that once you hit Captain Rank 8. And that Captain Rank 8 is going to grant you, I think, 3% reduction, or that camouflage actually is going to grant you 3% reduction in detectability. So my detectability is probably somewhere along 5.8 kilometers, which is well outside the range of this battleship and means that I am very difficult to detect. Now, unfortunately for these gameplays, Wargaming hasn't implemented the recording feature yet for recording the end screen, so I cannot show you what kind of results I got out of this game. But I go home with 5 kills, a ton of torpedo kills, a lot of medals, and it's, well, in the situation I suppose it's a bit of an overpowered ship, this Minekaze, but I really enjoy playing it. So, I'm gonna let this thing run out, but this is the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit the like button down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I'll try to get a bit more videos up for the next couple of weeks than I have been for the past few months, because that was just terrible. So, let me know, how have you guys been? I'm looking forward to hearing from you in the comments. What games are you playing now? What are you looking forward to? I, for one, I'm looking forward to Act of Agression. I'm in contact with Focus and Eugen, trying to get into that beta as soon as possible so I can upload material from that new game. So until then, hope you liked watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.